Bonjour tout le monde. Nous pouvons vous entendre, ministre Joly. Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. Au, euh, on a ici aujourd'hui avec nous l'honorable ministre Mélanie Joly, ministre
Oui,
des Affaires étrangères. Good morning, everyone. We have with us this morning the Honorable Mélanie Joly, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Ministre Joly, c'est à vous.
Oui, merci. Désolée, la chaise est trop basse. Ça ne sera pas très long. OK, bon, parfait. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to have the chance to talk to you today. I'm here in Belgium. Je suis présentement en Belgique, à Bruxelles, and I just participated in the Foreign Minister NATO meeting, and also I had many bilaterals with different foreign ministers, including David Cameron, the new UK foreign minister, and Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister for Ukraine. And I also participated in a meeting of basically the G6, because it was the meeting between the US, Europeans, and us, as Japan was not present at NATO. We spoke about different issues, the first one being, of course, the Middle East. I would like to say that we welcome the recent pauses in hostilities to make sure that hostages can be released, to make sure that humanitarian aid be allowed in. We call on this humanitarian truce to be extended. It is important that we have more hostages released. We need to make sure that there's more aid reaching Palestinian civilians, and we need to make sure that we get all Canadians out. At this point, we have around 250 Canadians that are still in Gaza. Around 500 of them have been allowed out. We hope that the extension of this truce will get us to a much more lasting peace, which eventually can be done through a two-state solutions. And I've been engaging with many actors of the region over the past days to address this very issue of lasting peace. Now, on Ukraine, it's been nearly 2 years that Putin launched its illegal invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine have been fighting for their freedom and for ours. At NATO, I reaffirmed Canada's commitment to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. We also talked about the importance of engaging with Ukraine on the issue of long-term security commitments for Ukraine to be able to address the issue of not only fighting on the battlefields right now, but show deterrence in time, because even when there is eventually a negotiation, diplomatic negotiation, Ukraine must be strong at the diplomatic table and must be able to have enough deterrence power to prevent Russia from leaving, rearming, and reinvading. And so that's why we've been not only engaging with Ukraine bilaterally to get to a long-term security commitment agreement, but also other allies, and including the G7. And of course, we've been working also with Ukraine to be able to repatriate Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russia and have left Ukraine. So this is something that I've been able to work on with my colleague Kuleba. And finally, of course, I spoke about the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement with my colleague. It is important that we sign this deal and that we get the support from all parties in the House. Ukraine has been fighting on the battlefield now for nearly 2 years, and it needs money to fund its battle, its existential battle, and it needs also money to be able to reconstruct afterwards. And so that's why it is important to sign this free trade agreement. Many foreign ministers came to see me regarding their preoccupation that the leader of the opposition, Paliev in Canada, was not in favor of this free trade agreement. And I had to reassure them on Canada's commitment and the government's commitment towards it. And last but not least, of course, we've been talking about how we can continue to work together between the EU, between the UK, and between Ukraine bilaterally, as I had so many bilateral meetings, and I can answer any questions about that. Donc, rapidement, en français, ce que je peux vous dire, c'est que je suis présentement à l'OTAN. J'ai rencontré plusieurs de mes homologues, David Cameron, le nouveau ministre des Affaires étrangères de la Grande-Bretagne, le ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Ukraine, le ministre Kuleba, et également, j'ai eu des rencontres au sein du G6, parce que le Japon n'était pas là, parce qu'on est en Europe et on était à l'OTAN. Nous avons parlé de la situation au Moyen-Orient. Nous accueillons positivement la nouvelle trêve humanitaire qui a été négociée, qui a permis à ce que les otages soient libérés, à ce que l'aide puisse être acheminée à Gaza aux civils palestiniens. On doit s'assurer que cette trêve humanitaire se poursuive. C'est très important qu'il y ait plus d'otages qui soient libérés. En fait, tous les otages doivent être libérés, que les Canadiens soient permis de quitter Gaza et également qu'il y ait davantage d'aide humanitaire qui soit livrée. Nous pensons que l'extension de la trêve va permettre peu à peu qu'on en arrive à une paix durable, mais cette paix durable ne peut arriver que s'il y a une solution à 2 États. Alors, j'ai eu plusieurs conversations avec mes homologues de la région au cours des derniers jours parce que c'est évident que le Canada veut aider à ce qu'on puisse arriver éventuellement à cette solution à 2 États. Quant à l'Ukraine, ça fait maintenant presque 2 ans depuis l'invasion illégale par la Russie de l'Ukraine. Les Ukrainiens continuent à se battre avec beaucoup de courage et nous sommes là pour les soutenir. Nous avons réitéré le soutien du Canada, qui est toujours aussi important, et bien entendu le soutien de l'OTAN. Et puis, j'ai parlé avec mon homologue, mais aussi avec plusieurs aussi collègues de l'importance des engagements de sécurité à long terme pour l'Ukraine. Nous avons parlé du rapatriement des enfants ukrainiens et j'ai également parlé de l'accord de libre-échange avec mon collègue Kuleba. C'est important d'être là alors que l'Ukraine est dans le besoin présentement. Et j'ai quand même pas mal de collègues qui m'ont posé la question pourquoi le chef de l'opposition au Canada était contre l'accord de libre-échange entre le Canada et l'Ukraine, alors que c'est évident qu'on doit être là pour soutenir l'Ukraine, pour aider à financer leurs efforts de guerre, mais aussi à être en mesure un jour de se reconstruire. Et c'est pourquoi cet accord de libre-échange est si important. Alors voilà, je suis prête pour répondre à vos questions.
On peut maintenant passer à la période de questions. On est assez limité dans le temps, donc s'il vous plaît, seulement une question. Vous pouvez lever la main dans le chat. We're now going to do the question period. We are limited in time, so only one question, please. On va commencer avec Mélanie Marquis de la presse.
Mélanie, je ne t'entends pas.
OK, c'est beau, le son vient d'être activé. Bonjour, Mme Joly.
Allô?
On a juste une question, c'est plate ça, donc je vais parler de Michael Kovrig. Vous avez peut-être vu que M. Kovrig a fait des déclarations dans les médias pour clamer son innocence. En même temps, il y a peut-être un enjeu du côté du programme d'établissement de rapports sur la sécurité mondiale dont il faisait partie à l'époque où il a rencontré M. Stavard. Est-ce que ça fait de lui un espion, en quelque sorte? Puis est-ce qu'il y a lieu peut-être de revoir les paramètres ou le fonctionnement de cette division-là, Mme Joly?
Premièrement, dire que les 2 Michael étaient impliqués dans des activités d'espionnage, c'est tomber dans le narratif de la Chine. Et c'est complètement inacceptable et c'est faux. Alors, je ne peux pas être plus claire, il n'y a pas eu d'activité d'espionnage. Et non seulement il n'y en a pas eu, il n'y en a pas au sein d'Affaires mondiales via le programme auquel vous faites mention. Pourquoi? Parce que essentiellement, ce sont des diplomates qui font leur travail en toute transparence enregistrés comme diplomates et qui sont les yeux et les oreilles sur le terrain du Canada, comme c'est le cas pour tous les diplomates dans le monde. Alors, je pense que, premièrement, le gouvernement et moi-même, nous soutenons complètement les deux Michael. Certainement ce que Michael Kovrig dit présentement quand il clame son innocence, premièrement. Et deuxièmement, nous sommes tout à fait à l'aise avec le travail qu'Affaires mondiales fait partout à travers le monde.
Next, we have Evan Dyer from CBC.
Good morning. Good afternoon for you, Minister Joly. Hi. I'm wondering, we saw today an arrest, or I should say an indictment in the United States of an Indian citizen, Nick Gupta, a drug trafficker, accused drug trafficker and arms smuggler in a plot to assassinate a Sikh US-Canadian citizen. Can you tell us, first of all, is the US maintaining your government abreast of these developments? And what is the significance of this unsealed indictment for Canada?
Well, when it comes to what's happening in the US, I won't comment directly because, of course, I respect the work that the American law enforcement agencies are doing, and I respect also the independence of their legal system. What I can tell you, though, is that we stand by our own credible allegations that there was a killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil, linking to Indian agents. So that's my first point. Second point is I've had numerous conversations with my American colleague, Secretary Blinken, on the issue that we were facing with India. And at the same time, we call on India to engage in our own investigation. And I think it is important that they do so. And I'm also in contact with the Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar on this very issue.
Thanks.
Thank you, Evan. We will now go over to Katie Simpson from CBC.
Hi, I'd like to follow up on that point. Two questions here I'm hoping you can answer. One, has India cooperated at all with the Canadian investigation? And two, according to this indictment, all of the American authorities were in contact with this person who is trying to carry out this alleged murder for hire plot in May and June of this year, before the killing that took place in Canada. How is it that the Americans were able to prevent an alleged murder for hire plot, but Canadian authorities were unable to?
So first, Katie, of course, I won't comment the work that is being done by our own law enforcement agencies for two reasons. The first one is I respect their independence. We're a rule of law country. And second, Minister LeBlanc is the minister that is in charge of public safety. But what I can tell you on the diplomatic impacts of our investigation and also what is going on in the US is I have engaged with my Indian counterpart on this very issue. We call on their cooperation to make sure that our investigation is able to proceed. And also, I still think that the impacts of our of making public our allegations and the fact that they've decided to remove diplomatic immunities to 41 of our diplomats was completely unacceptable. And it is clearly my goal to make sure that the 41 diplomats that should be right now working in India are allowed back.
Thank you, Katie. We can now head over to Steve Scher from Thomson Reuters.
Hello, thank you for taking our questions today. Yesterday, Panama's president ordered the closure of First Quantum, a Canadian, which is operated by a Canadian company there. And I was wondering, what your reaction is to this, and whether you're speaking to the government there about it, and whether there would be any impact on the free trade agreement between the two countries.
So I've had contacts with my counterpart from Panama on this very issue. The minister that has been spearheading this issue is Mary Ng, the Minister of Trade in Canada, and she can definitely give you much more comment on this. But of course, we expect the full cooperation of the Panama government.
I believe we have a little more time for another round of questions. If you have another question, please raise your hand. Mélanie Marquis, La Presse.
Bonjour. Autre sujet, par rapport aux exportations de ces détonateurs fabriqués au Canada, Mme Joly, au Kirghizistan, qui se retrouvent apparemment dans des mines antipersonnelles utilisées par l'armée russe. Est-ce que vous avez réussi à confirmer ces informations-là qui viennent du World Liberty Congress? Puis est-ce qu'il y a des gestes que vous comptez poser parce que ça semble être un contournement des sanctions canadiennes contre la Russie?
Je ne peux pas commenter, Mélanie, par rapport au cas spécifique auquel tu fais référence, mais une chose est sûre, c'est que nous voulons toujours faire en sorte que nos sanctions soient encore plus efficaces. Donc, récemment, j'ai encore rencontré l'ambassadrice ukrainienne à Ottawa pour être en mesure que nos sanctions puissent viser les bonnes entités. Alors, toute forme de contournement par des entreprises canadiennes de nos sanctions va être non seulement, comment je pourrais dire, abordée, mais en plus, on va sévère.
Il nous reste encore 2 petites minutes. We have 2 minutes left. If we can go over to Evan Dyer, CBC.
Hi there. I just want to ask a question about the detainees being released by Israel. We talked earlier about the two Michaels, and Canada often referenced the conviction rate in Chinese courts of 98%, suggesting that they were not fair courts. There's an even higher conviction rate for Palestinians accused in Israeli military courts. As you know, you've mentioned violence by settlers. The conviction rate for violence by Israelis against Palestinians is in single digits, on the other hand. Also, these arrests are being made in a territory that Canada considers illegally occupied. So I want to ask you, does Canada consider these lawful arrests, the arrests of Palestinians that are occurring now and that have occurred in the past outside of internationally recognized Israeli territory and outside of Israeli civilian law, does Canada consider those to be legitimate, lawful arrests?
So first and foremost, Evan, I did a declaration on condemning extremist settlers' violence recently, and we can provide you with that declaration. Our position, historic position on the West Bank is clear. At the same time, I think that we call on Israel to do more, not only to stop this extremist settlers' violence against Palestinians, but also to enforce the sanctions that are required to stop this violence. So we've been clear on this issue, and we expect Israel to do more to address this issue, because fundamentally, civilian lives and Israeli lives are both equal, and people in the West Bank must be able to live in security and peace side by side. That being said, when it comes to the West Bank, we're extremely concerned about the rise of violence that is happening as the conflict in Gaza is raging, and that is why we call on Israel to do more to address it.
I'm asking about the legality of the arrests, though, here. Are the Palestinians who are being detained by Israel lawfully held in Canada's eyes?
Evan, I won't go into the commenting this very issue, but what I can tell you, though, is that we expect that not only the arrest, the violence stop, that there be condemnation for it, but at the same time, any form of arrestations must be done according to the rule of law and international law.
Okay, I am being told this is the last question that we have time for. So please, Steve Scher from Thomson Reuters. Steve, if you still have a question, if you could unmute yourself, please. Katie Simpson, CBC.
Hi, I'd like to go back to India, if I may.
Yeah.
Minister, can you answer the question, why is it American authorities were allegedly able to disrupt a murder for hire plot and Canada could not?
Katie, you've asked me that question earlier and I've answered that question. First and foremost, I won't comment what the US is doing on this very issue. And at the same time, being the foreign minister, I'll take care of the relationship with the US and also with different countries around the world. And my colleague who's in charge of public safety is able to address this better than I in the circumstances. But what I can tell you, though, is that what India, what our allegations, when we made our allegations public, India decided to react in their own way, including by getting rid of the immunities of 41 diplomats. And that was completely unacceptable. And so that's why not only do we call on India to make sure that we can get our diplomats back in India, but also we expect them in the context of our investigation to fully engage.
And just to follow up, your previous answer, you strongly suggested that India at this point is not cooperating by repeating your calls on India to cooperate. Is that what I should take away from that answer, that at this point you continue to call on India to cooperate because they haven't been cooperating at this point?
Well, clearly we expect more cooperation on their part and more engagement on their part.
Thank you, everybody. Merci tout le monde. This is all the time we have for today's press conference. Merci beaucoup. Bonne soirée.
Thank you. Merci tout le monde.